thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. T-shirt twins.
T-shirt. I mean, mine's a hoodie, but loving it. Loving it. We'll get on to talking about these a bit later. My cousin mummy, I'm a MILF. I am. I see what you did there.
Yeah, thank you.
How are you? What have you been up to today?
I'm good. Today I launched a brand new character actually. So my new sketch show just launched this morning at 10 a.m. So that's been fun.
What's your character called?
His name's Tom Shoe. It's spelled S-H-U-E-U-E. The second U-E is silent, but you've got to do the lips to it. Yeah, exactly. And he reviews, and he gives his very honest opinion with his patented reviewing system, like none other. And yeah, he just launched today. His first review was of skirting boards.
So we are here to dig deep into your theatrical life thus far. When did it all start? When did you fall in love with theatre? Do you recall the moment?
So I think the moment happened when I was 6 months old, and I got cast as the baby Jesus in the story of the baby Jesus.
What was the audition process like for that? I mean,
I feel like it was a very long and complex process by which people were like, hey, Katie's going to be born in around July, which means by Christmas she would make a good baby Jesus. So it was very long. It was about a 16-month audition process, and I passed. I got the job. I don't remember. That would be that would be incredible if I could remember that. But my only stories I have of that are Mum telling me that she wasn't aware that Helen was going to climb up the scaffolding whilst carrying me, because Helen was playing Mary Magdalene, and Mum's stomach obviously went right up to her throat when she came to see the show. So always done my own stunts as well.
Was there a moment that you recall, probably not when you were 6 months, that you realised that you wanted to pursue theatre as a career?
Yeah, probably when I was about, I think, 6 or 7, and we did The Wizard of Oz at Kingsbury Amateur Operatic Society, the Amdram, and we did The Wizard of Oz, and I was playing Munchkin and the witch when she shrank, and I got to dress up as a tiny little witch and run around the auditorium, and that was amazing. I looked back on videos there, and I obviously was living for my life on that stage. I was like in all the crowd scenes, pushing my way to the front so that people could see my reactions as a Munchkin. It's like, people need to see what this Munchkin's feeling in this scene. And about that time, Chicken Shed Theatre Company was coming to our school, and we got to do some cool shows with them, and sorry, and then I think it was about that time that I was like, Mum, I want to go to Chicken Shed Theatre Company, please sign me up. And then I had to go on like a 3-year waiting list to get in.
Love that. So from Baby Jesus to Munchkin and Shrinking Witch, Chicken Shed Theatre Company. So has it all been clean sailing, or would you say that it's more who you know, not what you know?
I'd say it's probably a mixture of everything, and timing's probably the most important thing. Like, even in that story, right, I was doing Wizard of Oz at the same time Chicken Shed came to my school, which is how I realised that I could then go and join Chicken Shed Theatre Company. That's to everyone. You only have the power to control like what abilities you have. So if you want to be a professional performer, obviously you're going to classes, you're learning all your skills that you want to do. But South London. You're learning all your skills, but you want to do. But just having the skill set, it unfortunately won't necessarily get you the job. So you need to the only thing you're in control of is how good you are at your job. Work, like, just have a fun time doing what you love, and then hopefully it all comes together. But that's the interesting thing I think about performing, is that you can't necessarily see the progression in other jobs, because the success is that you're working in it as an industry. if you're working in it somehow, you're already successful, right?
So do you have a proudest moment then in your career?
I have a few because I'm really bad at deciding. Obviously, working in the West End, and that was like my dream, obviously, ever since I decided to be in shows. Naturally, obviously, your dream, if you want to be in musicals, you're like, I want to be on the West End, obviously. So when I did that, I thought, obviously, I was pretty chuffed with that, and I stayed in that show for so long because I just loved being in the West End. And then obviously last year, comedy wise, was incredible. Last year I won a couple of awards, and the musical comedy awards and the Two North Down new comedian competition. So that was really cool, and that led on to loads of cool other opportunities, one of which was my first proper TV thing, to go on Harry Hill's club night and get drenched in soup. So yeah, I think those almost the whole of last year and being in the West End are probably the top two.
And then the dreaded bug came.
COVID hit March 17th, 2020. I was gearing up to do my debut hour show at the Edinburgh Fringe, which is kind of it's a big deal, because until you do an hour, they kind of, when you do an hour, you open yourself up to being reviewed by the big reviewers, because you're considered like a pro level. You open yourself up to people wanting to come and see what you've created and stuff like that. Whereas before you do an hour, you're doing shorter shows. That's kind of you learning about what it is to do longer shows and stuff. So yeah, so it is quite a big deal. People make a big deal out of it. I just waited until I felt like I was going to be ready to do an hour's show that I was really excited to put out there, and I had a lovely venue and lovely promoters to work with and all this stuff, so I was very excited. But obviously that's cancelled, that's gone. Maybe next year, we'll see. Obviously no one knows yet. So there was that. What else was I doing? I mean, everything that I was working on this year has been cancelled, and one job got adapted, so that was really cool. They were like, it's a festival, we want to keep going if we can, so they'd figured out loads of contingency plans based on what the rules might be, and this was back in July, so no one actually really knew. And then when it came to it, we were like, oh, we're in a massive field, everyone's really far away, we're outside, so we can have audience. So it was really surreal because they had to sit so far away, and we were outside, and I was doing my comedy. So I was being filmed and I was being broadcast on the radio because we weren't sure if the audience could come and physically watch. And then there was like 150 people there, but about 20 meters away. So I was like, it's so nice to see. It was my first gig to an audience as well, in like however long that had been, maybe 4 months by that point, maybe 5. And I was like, it's so nice to see you, but you're so far away. You can just see your outline. So yeah, everything else kind of disappeared.
That doesn't mean that you stopped working, because you then adapted and found new talents.
Yeah, what I've learned, I know a lot of people have learned things about themselves in lockdown. And what I've learned is something I kind of knew before, but now I know for sure, is that I just can't sit still. I've got to keep doing something. So I just I went online. So I've been live streaming since, I think I started in about April. And so I've been live streaming a few times a week, making sketches, like I mentioned earlier, my new character, and also become an artist. Which I'm sure anyone that knows me can attest to. I'm not the best drawer, but just having a lovely time. Oh, I drew these tops that we're wearing.
You did. You did.
Little plug. I thought.
Where's the camera? There. The MILF, look, everyone. A MILF. Can you see what she did there? Got funny bones, this one. So going back to theatre, which I think is what we're here for, What is your favourite thing about being up on stage and performing in any capacity?
I think it's got to be the adrenaline, because there's not really anything like it. It's so interesting because it's like, it's obviously it's not physically unsafe to be on stage, but the adrenaline is like, oh, will I say the right words at the right time? Will I do the dance moves at the right time? Is my voice going to crack? And obviously when there's an audience there and they're really going for it, in theatre, in comedy, in dance, in whatever genre you're performing in, there's actually no real other feeling like it. You can't recreate that adrenaline in any other way, because you just, the energy of the room, it just transforms it.
Show week, I always, without fail, have that dream the night before opening night of falling in the band pit. Do you? Is that normal?
I think that's perfectly normal, yeah. And at one show I did, I was playing The Little Mermaid and I was on Heelys and had to obviously be singing whilst looking like I was floating, whilst there was some dry ice so that it looked like I was in the sea. But the stage was on a rake, which is like when it's tilted, so that it's just, that's technically for audiences that are on the floor, on the flat floor, can see the back of the stage. So it's on a raked stage. I was on these Heelys, there was dry ice, it was a little bit slippy on stage, and I could never see the edge of the stage on Heelys. They're not the most easy to direct, you know, especially if you're on a downward slope. So I'd be like, you know, I've forgotten the song. You know the one she sings where she's like, up there.
That one.
Yeah, sure, I think.
Look at this stuff.
Yeah, that one. Gosh, so the trauma's really stuck with me, hasn't it? Because I've even erased what that song. And then I'd be just floating around, being like, off I go. And then every now and then I'd like jolt myself to stop, because I'd be like, I can't tell if I'm at the edge of the stage.
What about auditions? They're my biggest fear. Auditions. How do you feel walking into an audition room?
Yeah, they're scary, aren't they? I think they're probably my least favourite part of the job. I'm sure that's the same for everyone, including the panels, probably. I think the best thing that I ever got told about auditions, and I only got told this by by a director who was trying to communicate to me what he wanted me to do with my character, and it's that most of the time the audition panel has decided if you're right for the character you're up for or not, within about 20 seconds, and that's probably before you've even spoken, or you might have just said hello. And so there's nothing that you can, that's not based on anything. that's based on things you can't change, which is how you look and your general energy, if that suits what they were thinking of for the character. Go in and like try and present how you feel like you would want to present this character, and see if they're into it. I mean, if they're not, it's hardly ever. I think it must be like 1% of the time it's to do with actually what's happened in the room. Instead of it being like a scary business meeting, which is what I used to think of it at the start, and used to be like, oh no, I better be on my best behaviour and all that kind of stuff. But actually most of the jobs I get is when I've been messing around a little bit, because they've seen that I like to mess around.
Fair enough.
That's probably not good advice. Don't go mess around, obviously.
Has it ever come to like bite you in the bum? Has there ever been a really embarrassing moment in an audition room?
Yes, many. I think the most embarrassing has to be the time when I fainted in the middle of a song.
Oh my God.
But they were still quite impressed, because they were like, "You're so musical." Because like, what I'd done is I'd waited until the end of the bar of the note that I was singing, and then I just went, "I'm really sorry, I think I'm going to faint," and then fainted on beat one. And when I came to, the panel were doing a whole host of different emotions. Like one was really scared, and she was trying to give me like food and sugar. One was fanning me. One was like crying with laughter. The pianist was just like like frozen in time. It was very funny. I was like, shall we pick up where I left off? And then a comment was made, oh yes, because you finished on beat 4, fainted on beat 1, we could pick up on beat 1. So it just became a joke in the room. And
Like most embarrassing moments, you can kind of see the funny side after you've kind of digested that that's happened and we got through it and everyone's alive and it's fine. So from audition room to rehearsal process then, so you've done a lot of Pantos, as well as in the West End. So what's the rehearsal process like?
So it kind of differs for which style of project you're working on. So a lot of the work I do is actor-musician shows where the actors play the musical instruments as well, and you form the band when you're not on doing your character thing, and sometimes everyone's in their characters on the stage playing and dancing and all this. So for those kind of shows, it's a slightly longer audition process because you're having to learn so many different things, and so for those it's normally about a 4-week rehearsal process, where you'll have like the first week will be learning all of the music, then you'll be expected to be completely off score so that then you can go into learning, you know, the scenes and the choreography whilst plotting essentially where you're going to get your instrument. Like half the acting muso job is a puzzle system where you're figuring out, okay, if I pick my saxophone up from here and it needs to be put down here, then I need to start the next song from where I've put it down. So it's very confusing, and our lovely DSMs that sit in the rehearsal with us have to write pages and pages of these saxophone and instrument plots so that we know where we're actually getting our stuff from. It's so ridiculous. So that's normally about a 4-week rehearsal process, and obviously there's a safety element, so the tech rehearsals will be a bit slower, because of making sure everyone's safe on stage whilst playing their instruments, and pyros and stuff going off aren't going to go off into your saxophone. And then other stuff, it's happened. I mean, one show the pyro went off very close to where the saxophone, the bari sax was positioned, and it was the theatre's bari sax, but the pyros aren't hot. But obviously the ignition from it, at the very base of it, when it goes off, there's a chemical reaction obviously for it to go off. So what comes onto stage isn't hot, and you normally can't feel it. If you can, it's like tiny little tingles. It's not, but it had melted like some of the keys off of the sax. It's like when one of the saxophonists picked it up to play it, she was like, I think this I think this key's a little bit broken. We're like, oh yeah, it's come on, welded. I mean, it was a cheap saxophone, but so there's that kind of stuff. You've got to make sure it's okay. And if it's not actor-muso, for a panto, it's normally about a 1-week rehearsal process.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but you know, the bigger ones, the bigger pantos where they have stars in and celebrities and stuff, because a lot of the time everyone will have their kind of bit to do. So a 1-week rehearsal process will mean that everyone has the time to rehearse their one kind of big chunk, and then you're just working out the bits in between. But because it's not actor-muso, you're not on stage when you're not being your character, so it's a lot less like normally in an actor-muso panto, the actors don't actually leave the stage. If they walk off the stage, they'll walk back on and join the band straight away. So there's no like backstage time, whereas in a kind of more commercial panto, you're just going on doing your character, going on like how you'd imagine a normal show to happen. So yeah, it's a lot easier, just 1 week. But then it's like, I realised last year, like the only time I saw some of the characters in the show was actually in the finale. And I was like, oh, our characters haven't interacted this entire show.
Has there ever been an appropriate moment to use the term "the show must go on"?
Oh yes, so very many. I think in no other world would you be expected to carry on in the face of injury and illness. And in Dreamboats and Petticoats, which is the show that I did in the West End, one of the lead characters fell up the stairs before the show and really hit her head very badly, like really terribly badly. She went on to do the show, but she was not, like, we were spotting her in the wings, if you see what I mean, and the whole cast was just very aware she'd really injured herself, and so she obviously had to pull out of the show halfway through because she was so disoriented. But it's like, it's shock, and because you're taught like it's, people call it doctor theatre, which is both the most useful and least useful thing to call it, because people go on stage in a whole manner of situations where they probably shouldn't be at work, and either your body overrides that and the adrenaline overrides that and you get through the show. And like, I've seen people get through shows and it's the best show they've ever been in, and you're like, I don't know how you physically did that. But then there's other times where people start a show and then it's like they can't physically do it because they're injured. So yeah, she came off in the interval of the show, and we were like, thank goodness she's done that, because she was not feeling, but because she'd hit it literally after beginners, you get your beginners call and then you have 5 minutes before the show starts, so it's not enough time to figure out how this injury's affected you. So I think everyone would have done the same. Another one was one of the characters once dislocated her shoulder in maybe the third song of the show.
Ouch.
Yeah, and she turned up stage and we were like, oh my gosh, that looks really painful. And she carried on in the song, and she came off, and then we all had to switch around, obviously because she was in so much pain, and it was quite a physical track. So she came off. They obviously relocated her shoulder, but we all had to go on. We had to do like a little show stop, because all of us, basically the way that the cover system often works is there's like people move up. So an ensemble member might be covering a lead role, then you've got an offstage swing which will cover the ensemble member, so that's what I was, offstage swing. So we all had to swap, but we all also had to swap mic packs and everything. So it's kind of a process where you're getting into character, getting dressed, getting your makeup on and your hair done. You've got 5 minutes to do it. It's absolute chaos backstage, but you also have to swap all the mic packs, so no one can actually go on until the poor person that's had to come off has been able to get out of their mic pack, but obviously their injury needs to be seen to first. It's very it's very much like an action movie, but just for those 5 minutes while everything changes over. And everyone's always like, oh, I feel so terrible, this poor person's been injured. I would like to take at least an hour to make sure that they're okay, and to, like, you know, see if they need anything. But actually what you're doing is you're just waiting in a queue until they've got out of their clothes so that you can kind of put them on. And it's like everyone knows that that's obviously how it has to be, so that everyone understands that's not you being unsupportive, that's you being very supportive, because you're covering it. They can take the time off, they don't have to worry, but at the same time you're like, come on, get out of your clothes, I gotta put them on. So it's a very weird situation.
I gave you my heart, but the very next day you gave it away. I'm grateful, that's cool.
What about the unsociable hours that come with theatre life? How do you find working unsociable hours?
Well, it's unsociable hours at the most sociable time. So you're everyone else's social life.
Yeah.
So that is nice to be part of that. And for the most part, people are coming to your place of work because they want to have a fun night out. And that's obviously with comedy and theatre and everything. So on the most part, it's a really lovely experience to be there while everyone's having fun. You're there so that people are having a nice night out, and that's very enjoyable. And then you go out after, but it means that you become nocturnal, so it depends if you prefer the morning or the night.
I love the fact that, and I've seen lots of comments, and I'm not just saying this because you're here, but there was actually a comment, best fairy godmother ever. Hope you
has
don't mind me
been
saying
compared
that.
That
to
was really nice.
Beyonce and Adele.
Whoa! Wow!
Fact.
That's not bad.
She's got an amazing voice.
Well, I've never been in any reviews before, so I did like those ones.
Do you have any advice? Go.
No, I feel like that's a good question that you've asked there now. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of pressure on image, especially almost entirely for women. Men get it a bit too, but it's, I saw on Twitter this week people were laying into Billie Eilish, and she's only 18. She's also beautiful, and she's got an incredible singing voice, very talented songwriter. There's so many things that you can you can talk about other than her body image, and also that I just don't understand why people would try and a lot of my friends come up against it. Women in comedy get it quite badly. Instead of people commenting on your actual what you're performing or what you're talking about or what you're doing, they comment on your appearance, your physical appearance a lot, and they try to take you down that way. And these people are obviously people who have personally have an issue with how they look themselves, and they're just projecting it onto other people because they haven't dealt with it themselves. So everyone looks completely different to everyone else. And that is fine. If we all look the same, that would be really boring and really hard to tell people apart when you're trying to figure out which actor is playing that character, and you're on IMDb and you're like, who is this actor? And they all look the same. You wouldn't want that. And think about who you admire as actors in TV and film and on the stage, and none of them all look the same. So if you are thinking about going out and auditioning and stuff, you just be aware that everyone needs people that look all different ways to play all these different characters. And there might be certain tropes or certain physical, appearances that are more suited to certain things. But that's just the casting directors decided that. And they will need someone that looks exactly like you, because you're an absolute dream, and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise.
Oh, you've just
Jesus to you.
Pritchy's advice of the day, and a really slow wink from Tom Shu. Good advice. Thank you. Thank you so much for giving me your time of day and letting us into the world of theatre and those those bits that we'll never normally get to find out about, like a 1-week panto rehearsal process.
Yeah, 1 week, 2 or 3 days of tech, then you start doing the show. It's very scary.
Very adrenaline.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, best of luck with everything, and I will make sure that I pop your coffee link and your T-mail link and everything up on in the text. Woo! And we can see more of Katie Pritchard live every week, various days of the week, doing various different shows. Hats off to you for being able to put technology and use it as your friend and be able to showcase all your talents, and even tech as a talent. Like, I don't know how you do it. It's amazing. So definitely worth a watch. Adios, amigos. And yeah, take care. Thank you. Bye.